No, Lee, thanks a lot for hosting the meeting, number one, and for really working with an engineering department to move us forward. So I want to welcome everybody on board, and I wanted to thank Lee Hampton for hosting as well as doing the work to help get us back on track as an engineering department. And then I want to thank everyone that actually joined in the live call. This call will be recorded. And so what we're asking is that we know there are going to be questions. So we're going to ask you just to place the questions in the chat at the time, but we're going to have open Q&A because we want to be able to have this conversation, but more so this presentation initially, where it can be recorded pretty clean, and you can share with your fellow graduates that graduated during the era you did, as you're asking them to come on board and to really help us get our engineering program back to the place where it once was. So with that, I want to turn it over to Lee Hampton. And once again, Lee, thanks a lot. And if you have questions, put them in the chat, but we're going to open Q&A in about 20 minutes as he present through. All right, Lee, it's on you.
Thank you, Howard. So again, thanks everyone for attending. I'm going to walk through this in hopefully about 20 to 25 minutes. Be patient with me if I extend it to 30 minutes, but certainly I want to be, if I have effective use of your time and get you out of here at a reasonable time. So I'm going to do a couple of things. One, I'm going to give you background on why we need to do this and how I got involved. Everyone should have received the petition we put together that we intend to engage not just the dean, but the incoming president as well as the board. Everyone should receive that. And I'm going to walk through the 6 key tenets that we feel are important to improve within the engineering program to get us back on track and get us back to at least where we were in the 80s and 90s when we were one of the top producers of the top or second top producer of Black engineers in the country. And we're a long way from that now. So I'm Lee Hampton. I graduated in fall of 1988. I'm an electrical engineer. Spent 20 years in corporate America in a variety of roles, ExxonMobil, Marathon, Beach Street Bulletin, and so forth. And then I started my own company. So I got pulled into this whole endeavor, I'd say August of last year. So Corey Harris, which is on the line, he kind of pulled me in. He had conversations with people in the administration who indicated that the engineering program was either in decline or needed some improvement. Corey gave me a call and pulled me in, and the first thing I said was, I'm kind of clueless. I'm kind of embarrassed to admit, but I'm kind of clueless on the program. First thing I need to do is understand the plight of the program, where we are and where we're heading. And so I asked Corey to set up a meeting with the Dean of Engineering. So we met with Dr. Carriere, Dr. Sahu, and a few others to really get an understanding of where are we. And after that presentation, it was me, Corey, and about 3 other individuals. We got back together and we had the same reaction, which was we were floored at what we believe is a significant decline in the program, engineering program. So we can debate the qualitative decline. There is no debate in the quantitative decline. We're graduating in the 40s as it relates to engineers, low 40s, high 40s some years, low 50 other years, total engineering graduates coming out of Southern. During the 80s, clearly we were in the 110s, 120s, 130s. So we've seen a pretty significant decline. I look back at my graduating pamphlet a couple of days ago, and we graduated 57 just in the fall of 88. And the fall is usually the least number of graduates across the year, relative to spring at least. So we've got a serious challenge from a quantitative standpoint. We've got some other challenges as well. So we met with the dean, went through his presentation, didn't get a good feel as far as where we were heading. So I volunteered along with Corey and a few others to work with the department to see if we as alums could contribute something. We work with Dr. Fred Lacey, who's over the electrical engineering. He's the chairman of electrical engineering. The problem was perceived to be Double E, primarily because Double E right now has the lowest number of graduates of the three engineering disciplines. So we're talking about civil, environmental, electrical, and then mechanical. Double E at that point in time, I think it graduated 7 or 8 in a particular year. And I just remember thinking, I had 12 or 13 folks in my study group, not less the number of folks graduated with me. And as we began to work with Dr. Lacey, all of the solutions that we came up with, it was pretty clear that we didn't have an electrical engineering challenge. We had an engineering challenge because every solution was really applicable widespread to whether it's mechanical, electrical, civil, environmental. Just looking at the fundamental issues around how are we recruiting students? So why are we not recruiting students? The type of students we're getting, the quality of students that we're getting, the scholarships that we are giving individuals coming in. So just looking across the board, there were some clear challenges that the Double E chair alone, even without help, couldn't solve because, again, they were universal problems. And so around February, March, I think we got the notion that, this is really not working. We're not hitting the pinpoints that we want. So we're going to kind of take a step back. And we recognize that it's very difficult internally to create a way forward, an engineering strategy for a couple of reasons. But we decided we would take this on, create a strategy, a very slimmed down strategy in which we could move forward and get this program back on track. So our goal at that point in time was we need to get back to producing at least 100 engineers per year. Really, that should be a minimum goal, but first we've got to crawl before we can walk. So what I will walk you through today is 6 key elements to that strategy that we put together. And we're from corporate, so most of us are corporate guys. So corporate guys like KPIs or be able to measure what you're going to do and then have some certainty as to the outcome. So we'll kind of walk through what that looks like. And then I'll wrap up by telling you what we need from you. So this is a heavy lift, but it's a worthwhile lift. It's a lift that we feel if we don't get it done now, then it won't get done because the longer we go with a low number of graduates, the bigger the gap, demographically speaking, of the talent base spread across the engineering. And many of us, like myself, are getting older and longer too. So we want to hit this now. We've got a new president coming in. I think we can get an audience with him, an audience with the board. We've got some inroads in the board that we want to utilize, and then move this thing forward. So I'm gonna share my screen at this point if I can. So I'll go through these 6 areas. The first area is recruiting, and so the thing that we've certainly noticed is we're not recruiting the same caliber of student that we had in the 80s and 90s. And that's pretty obvious from a couple of standpoints. One, the students are not coming in math ready. And so there's a significant number of individuals that require remedial math before progressing into engineering. And that's always been the case, but those were fairly small numbers. But in the 80s and 90s, we had kids that were quite frankly ready for engineering without that level of remediation. And we've got a number, looking at the data from the engineering department, we've got a large number of students in engineering at the freshman level, but they never matriculate past the freshman level. And so I guess from one standpoint, they're really never engineering students because until you get to Cal 1, Cal 2, statics, circuits, I would argue you're really not an engineer. You're someone who would like to do engineering, but may not have the capability to become an engineer. So that's why the number drops off from, we may have 200 students, 200 to 300 students, freshman level in engineering, but by the time we get to graduation, that number dips in Double E to 7 students. So there's a disconnect there. And part of the disconnect from talking with faculty and looking at numbers is there's a disconnect in the quality of students we're getting. One of the reasons there's a disconnect in quality of students that we're getting is engagement. So when we were coming up, most of us, we had ESI, Engineering Summer Institute, we had summer enrichment. And so when I look back at my engineering classmates, 90% of them either went through ESI or they went through summer enrichment, which is what I went through. And then once you get on campus and once you get indoctrinated into all the ways of the university and the bluff, then it's a natural progression to attend Southern University. You invested, you've got classmates, you've got friends, you're kind of familiar with faculty at that point in time. And so it's a natural progression. And we've lost those programs. So ESI has gone from, well over 100 students per year to the last time they had it, which was 2 or 3 years ago. I think they had 7 students. They merged it with a program called transportation to try to get the numbers up in the teens. But those programs are fundamentally non-existent. And so we're not getting an early look at the talented kids, and we're not getting to really sell them on the university ahead of time. So we've really got to go back and look at reinvigorating those programs. We've got to look at establishing relationships with the high schools, whether it's Southern Lab, whether it's Scotlandville Magnet, or any other schools that are we think are high quality schools. And then we've got to recruit transfer students. Quite frankly, one of the big hits to Southern was the BRCC, which is really a community college that many kids go to instead of Southern, like they did back in the day. And so we've got to recruit those good students from BRCC and then get them back into the pipeline. And then the last thing we had when I was coming up, we had scholarships. So I had a full ride. Most of my friends had a full ride or partial ride. And the scholarships have dried up for a number of reasons, which I won't go into. But we've got to be able to get that back in order to attract the quality students that we once did. I think once we get the quality students in place, a lot of other things begin to follow quality students. One companies begin to come back to career fairs because we've got quality students. They want quality students, and we've got to be able to produce those. And so I've got a couple of KPIs that I've just kind of outlined so we can hit targets, we can understand what we're trying to do. And these KPIs are primarily for the administration or the dean or the department chairs with our help to hit these KPIs to kind of move us forward. Again, hold questions until the end. So with that, I kind of talked about this to a certain extent. Scholarships is going to be a big deal. One of the programs that I've seen work at other schools is what we call cohort programs. You bring in a large number of high quality students. You give them full rides, you put them in a class, you bind them together. They tend to work off of one another and do well. But the other thing that happens is they tend to bring up the quality of the whole program because they begin to tutor other students, and we make them responsible and burden them with the task of bringing up the entire program. And so it becomes one of those things where iron sharpens iron. And then once you get sharp students in the program, you can bring others along that may need to come along more slowly, but at least you've got the top quality students there to kind of headline the program. So these would kind of be the face, what I would call as the face of the program. Louisiana has something called TOPS, which essentially, if you meet a certain criteria around ACT score and GPA, the state pays for essentially half of your tuition, and to leverage those state dollars along with dollars that we contribute, I think would be a good leverage point to get in a cohort of quality students, and then just begin to build on that for years going forward. And that's how you get back to numbers that we saw in the 80s and 90s, and that's certainly how you get back to the quality of students that we had in the 80s and 90s. Moving on to structure. So I'll be real quick on this one. So we no longer have a College of Engineering. We have the College of Science and Engineering. So they have combined engineering, computer science, math, chemistry, biology, physics into one college. That on the surface may not seem problematic, but it is problematic because engineering is not getting the attention it needs. Number two, those programs just don't have a whole lot of synergy. They're very different. They're very different outcomes and goals. And then lastly, that's really just not national best practice. So you can't really find a school anywhere in the country that calls themselves a top quality engineering program that combines all of these into one college. So we really need to go back and look at that structure and see whether it's a valid structure. do the work and come out with a structure that I think is most appropriate for engineering, and quite frankly, most appropriate for those other disciplines as well. What's common right now is combining engineering and computer science. Has become quite common over the last decade or so, but certainly not combining all of STEM into a single college. I think it's problematic, and certainly I like justification as to why we think that's the best structure. Certainly not saying that's the problem, but certainly that contributes to the problem. Engagement, we just don't do this well. And part of it is us as alums have not, taken the time to reach back, give back, give our ideas, give our thoughts. So I'm certainly not putting the blame in one place. I certainly take the blame on part of this, in fact, because I didn't, really stay engaged the way I should have. But we've got to do a better job of engaging students based on where they are. This is an age of social media. We've got to have a social media presence. We've got to be able to connect with students where they are, how they like to be connected. We've got to connect with alums, and alums have to connect with administration, because we have skills that, quite frankly, they may not have, and we got those skills from Southern. So, those skills that the administration should be able to tap into and utilize. And so we really got to do a better job, quite frankly, overall outreach, getting feedback from students, getting feedback from alums. And that goes two ways, and then having a presence, and then really understanding how to use that media presence, how to use that outreach to move forward the engineering program, and then have a specific goals in which we're really having that engagement around. So that's the outreach portion of it. And then partnerships. We need partnerships. So whether it's government partnerships, whether it's private industry, whether it's other universities, we have to have an exchange of ideas. We have to have an exchange of technology. We have to have an exchange of opportunities. We have to have an exchange with other entities. We can't sit on an island, and we don't do that very well right now. And we need to do a better job of that. We've got to have some level of expertise where we're considered the center of excellence, whether it's alternative energy, or whether it's cybersecurity, whatever it may be. We've got to be able to establish some relevance and some expertise where we're the center of excellence around something. And so we've got to do a better job of research and development. We've got to do a better job of getting other professors in here and maybe exchanging our professors for theirs, getting industry technologies in-house. And companies looking at technology X, Y, and Z, well, can we bring them in for a semester to kind of exchange ideas, which benefits us, but it also benefits the company because we're producing students that are ready with the technologies that they're looking toward moving forward. So again, as always, we need KPIs around that. We need to be able to measure something. We need to be able to understand what we're going after. Last, fundraising. So nothing gets done without money. And one of the best ways to raise money is to have a plan and understand what the money is going to be used for. And so what we've done is really put together a list of things that need improving and a list of KPIs that we can tackle, and then raising dollars that are applied to those particular items. So we're not raising money for the sake of having money or for a general purpose. We're raising money for specific tasks and specific goals and specific outcomes. And we've got a window here that corporations are open to funding around HBCUs and causes around African Americans based on a number of events that have happened over the last several years. And so we've got to take advantage of that. But one of the things we've got to do first and foremost is we've got to take care of how in-house fundraising. We've got to be able to give back to university, because what other companies do, what other entities, foundations look at is, what are you doing for self? What is your participation rate? How much are you raising in-house for these programs? Because if we're going to contribute, then we want to understand that you have some skin in the game. The other portion of this is, as we have conversations with the board, as we have conversations with the new president and the dean, we have to have some skin in the game. We have to show that we're serious. that we have some expectations around what the program looks like. So, along with those expectations, we're willing to come to the table and provide dollars, provide resources and assistance in fundraising in order to get this thing done. So this is really around putting some skin in the game and having a platform as we talk to the leadership of Southern to let them know we're willing to do our part, but you've got to do your part as well. And we're going to use the foundation. The foundation is a wonderful vehicle for establishing an account, putting the funds there, and then having us manage those funds for the purpose of engineering. We're not trying to create a separate 501c3. The overhead associated with that is just too great. The foundation does a really good job of dispersing funds. They're being audited. They've been doing it for 10 years, so they know how to do it well. And we just don't need the overhead associated with actually taking in funds and trying to manage funds. We need to be looking at the strategy and how do we apply funds to our specific priorities. So that's kind of the 6 tenets in a nutshell. So so what do we need? What do we need from this group? We need a couple of things. We need your endorsement of the plan and endorsement of the petition. There is strength in numbers. So as we go forward with this petition, it would be huge for us to be able to say we have hundreds of alumni behind this versus 20 or 30 or 40. If we can say we've got hundreds, that speaks volumes. If you want to participate, then by all means, it's been a few of us doing the heavy lifting. This is a heavy lift and it's not going to be done by a few. So we're going to break out into committees. If you have an interest in being on the committee, leading a committee, by all means, let me know. The third thing we need is we need you to spread the word. What I found is if I can tap into somebody and have them tap into 5 or 6 people, they know we can grow the list. That's kind of how we've grown the list to what it is today. So I need you to spread the word. If everyone on here can pull in 5, 10 people from that class of people they contact with, that they have contact information for, we can really grow this. The last thing we need dollars. And this is not a 1-year commitment, this is a 5-year commitment. So whether you're donating $100 a year for 5 years, that's great because it increases the participation rate. And the more people small donors we get, the better. If you want to donate large dollars, obviously that's even preferable. But the key is we need participation rate. We need as many people participating as possible, because as we go and try to get money from others, one of the first things they're going to ask is, what's your internal participation rate? They're going to want a dollar amount as well. But certainly your dollars are going to go a long way in getting this done. And it's going to show how they were serious around what we're trying to do. So I think I hit my target. That was about 25 minutes. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.